So when it comes to co-parenting, there's no right way or one way to do it. It's basically what's going to get the job done and what's going to create the least amount of conflict between you two. So everybody knows that it's a conflictual time at certain points in the co-parenting relationship, but some people have chronic conflict. They just do. And sometimes that goes away over time, sometimes it doesn't. So it's really about finding what works, not what looks good. So there's two concepts. There's collaborative co-parenting, which means you get along and you can communicate pretty well. And then there's parallel co-parenting, which means you really can't communicate very much at all. And when you do, it slowly or quickly devolves into conflict and spirals into conflict. So it's best to use tools in between you two that don't make direct communication possible. So in looking at that, you might want to use tools like, for example, OurFamilyWizard, which is a app that you can actually write all your notes in, do all your communications in, and the only time that you would have to go outside the app is if it's an emergency and you need to talk to the person or inform them by text that you need information about your child, or you're running super late, or there's a medical issue that needs to be addressed pretty quickly. So those would be the times. But otherwise, you would work on just trying to do as much communication as you can in these kinds of ways. So the priority is peace over communication. And that would be in any situation. So if you're having a transition where your child is being transitioned back and forth, you would have very little overlap. Some people do things um, as solid as dropping their kid off in public, like a police station or a visiting center. Some people have communications that they always attach another person to. So all of these things are really important ways to minimize conflict. When you're doing collaborative co-parenting, you're actually parenting together, meaning you're creating parenting plans together. You're talking about the kid's well-being. You're talking about the stage of development and what you're working on with your child. And there's mutual respect and cooperation. And that's what makes the collaborative co-parenting able to work. So we protect peace at any cost. So if you're in a parallel parenting situation, for example, and you're using one of the apps, that one of the things that you want to remember is that you need a buffer between yourself and the other parent. And basically, you should always have one, whether it's an app, whether it's a person, whether it's a different situation that helps you and your other parent behave better. There also should be really clear agreements that are well documented. So if somebody's like really late chronically, that's pretty notable, and it's also notable in whatever the agreement was, the time frame of the drop off and pickup time of the visit, for example. So what's your personal work to do? So if you're in a situation where you're trying to retain peace versus conflict, then you're actually looking at your part in it, and you're recognizing how you can change your part in it by recognizing the blame language that you might be using, reframing your role as someone who's not trying to win, but trying to protect and bring peace, and also practicing detachment versus like disengagement. So that means, I mean, practicing detachment without disengagement, which means you're not ignoring somebody. You're just not getting triggered by them. You've resolved some of those issues. You've really decided not to take the battle on, not to take on the confrontation or the confrontational part of the other parent. You're also doing one more thing is you're holding boundaries without any need to validate to the other parent, like that you don't mean to hurt their feelings. Like you're like, hey, here's the boundary. This is what I'm doing in terms of timing, or this is how long I'm going to wait, or this is what I'm going to do if the clothes aren't dropped off, for example. That you're just holding a boundary around these kinds of things and really proceeding on to parent your child and not have your child be triangled into the conflict, like, oh, sorry, your mom didn't drop off the shoes. Like you would just try to figure out another way to handle it instead of creating conflict and creating a triangulation with your child. So how do you do this? If you're working on not being triggered, you're working on disarming any argument before they start. They're not necessary. You're responding instead of reacting. Check your nervous system. And you're also continuing to check your nervous system that you're not getting all riled up because of an interaction. This is you getting more, this is you not being detached, but being more engaged with the other person. So remember, you want to detach and you want to detach without disengaging. You want to engage enough to get the information, but you don't want to be enmeshed in your engagement with the other parent. So we have to let go. We have to let go of the fantasy of maybe how we could in a dream land co-parent with this person and not have conflict if it hasn't been proven the case. And you can't also participate in it. So you really have to watch how you might create it, or you might feel so disappointed by it that you bring your disappointment to your children or to the other parent. So it's really about you letting go of whatever the vision that you had of co-parenting and do the vision that you have now with the goal that you can keep yourself centered, peaceful, and taking care of your child as best as you can and not leaking any negative information about the other parent in these interactions. It's not really necessary to do that to keep reinforcing that idea to your child.